Hey there, and welcome to my channel. This is the story of how I created the LIL language. My name is Miro. I'm a designer and developer with more than 15 years of experience. Let's have a look.
Hey there!
Our story begins in 2009. I was doing web development at the time. And in case you don't know, in a web, you have a content tree and then you have a style sheet, which gives appearance to the elements in the content tree. The content tree is written in a language called HTML, and the presentation is written in CSS, which is short for cascading style sheets. I was doing, in my ignorance, a lot of elements called div with a class on it to identify them, and applying CSS using these classes, and I thought there is a lot of repetition there. And how about using for the content XML instead of HTML, so the element would be the name of the element, would be the name that we would actually be using in the presentation layer to refer to it, instead of using a class which is something added to that name. And then, but since XML and CSS were not compatible, I thought, what would a language, a presentation language for XML look like? And what would I give to this language if I were to choose? So I opened my document editor and I started writing a document about a language which at the beginning looked quite similar to CSS, and then started deviating from it more and more and more and more, until it reached a point where I thought, like, this is not a subset of CSS or a superset, I don't know, but it's actually something else. And I even came to the point to make an open source project about it. It was the Axer project, the arbitrary XML rendering. And the domain name was .vg, which I thought was cool for vector graphics, but it was very confusing at that. Later we changed it to axerproject.org, which I think doesn't exist anymore. Anyway, this project was about creating a new language for making websites. And it relied on the NP API, that's repetitive. It relied on the API for including plugins in a web browser, like Flash. So when Flash died, Java plugins died along with him, because the browsers removed the NP API interface. And then my project died as well, because there was no way to getting a document rendered with this technology into the browsers of people without the plugins. So the project died, and I moved on. I created an indoor skate park business here on my island, and I had children, and a lot of things happened. But I continued playing around with the code base a little bit, and then after some time I came to the realization that I wanted to make games with it. And as I tried to experiment and continued working a little bit, I added support for images and sprite sheets and even animations. But I realized, like, if I wanted to make a serious game out of this, I wouldn't achieve the kind of performance I needed to achieve the 60 frames per second. So I decided I had to start from scratch. I had to learn, take everything I had learned about making a language and about how I was using the language actually, because I realized I didn't use the XML part at all. I only created all the elements I needed from within the presentation layer, which I had called HSS, hierarchical style sheets, because the main feature of the language at the time was something that ended up in being the main feature of SCSS and SAS, which is putting rules inside of rules instead of writing ever longer selector chains to refer to items. Well, that was the initial idea for how to make it better, and obviously other people had that too. But other people limited themselves to pre-processing something to CSS, and I thought that was limited. And well, anyway, I was creating the content elements in HSS, and I didn't use XML. So I thought, why not just use that part of the language and base it only on that? So that's how LIL came to be. You use like rules where you say what you target, and then you give it properties like what color, what size, what font size, or something like that. And you can also create elements and reorder stuff dynamically, and then you can create your whole application, your whole interface out of sort of like CSS kind of syntax, but with way more power, because you have a whole language which is, you can get as much control over the fine detail as C, for example, because you can have pointers to memory, and you can really like go crazy with the amount of power you have. Like, this is all for advanced users, and I don't want to scare you. Like, the language is very good at disclosing complexity progressively. So if at first it's really, really simple, and then if you want to dive deeper into more detail, you can. But that's for another video. I mean, this is now just the story how it all started. And I hope you stay tuned for more on how to like the concepts of the language and all the intricacies of the design decisions I have made so far, and how to use this. Like, my feeling says this is something really, really great. It will be awesome language for creating native applications and video games on cross-platform, and maybe even on consoles, who knows. So I hope you had fun listening to me talking about how I came up with this idea. Stay tuned on this channel for more videos about how to actually use this. I will be doing screencasts and go into detail about how the compiler works, and all the fun parts of how this journey for me with creating a language goes. Have fun, everyone. So see you. Bye.